On the 8th of April 1943, high above Caen, France, Oberleutnant Ralph Hermaken smirked through his oxygen mask, watching the ungainly Republic P-47 Thunderbolt struggle below his Focke-Wulf 190. "The Yanks have sent us flying milk bottles," he laughed, mocking their barrel-shaped fuselages and oversized propellers. To German aces, these 7-ton behemoths looked comical, easy prey for a Luftwaffe honed by years of war. Yet, in the icy air at 27,000 feet, a faint rumble hinted at a storm brewing American industrial might, ready to rewrite the skies. Designed by Alexander Kartveli, amid the panic of 1,940, the P-47 was no ordinary fighter. Its 8 50-caliber guns poised to unleash a wall of lead. In French villages below, civilians sensed a shift, their scarves fluttering as the Thunderbolt's roar signaled change. Within 18 months, German laughter would turn to terror, the P-47's guns becoming the most feared sound in the skies. By 1945, 15,683 Thunderbolts buried the Luftwaffe under an avalanche of steel, their pilots outtrained and outgunned. General Adolf Galland later admitted, "We laughed at their size, but those guns Roosevelt's piano played our requiem." This is the story of how a ridiculed milk bottle became the instrument of annihilation, claiming the skies for America. Part 1. The Laughter in the Sky. The 8th of April 1943, 27,000 feet above Caen, France. Oberleutnant Ralph Hermaken adjusted his oxygen mask, a smirk curling beneath it as he peered through the crystal-clear canopy of his Focke-Wulf 190 amperes 5. Below, the ungainly silhouettes of Republic P-47 Thunderbolts clawed their way upward, their massive forms struggling against the thin air. To the veteran ace of Jagdgeschwader 26, the sight was almost comical. "The Yanks have sent us flying milk bottles," he radioed to his wingman, laughter crackling over the static. The P-47 seconds, with their barrel-shaped fuselages, greenhouse canopies, and oversized propellers, looked like caricatures compared to the sleek Spitfires or nimble Soviet Yaks the Luftwaffe had mastered. Each Thunderbolt, powered by a 2,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, weighed a staggering 7 tons, nearly double the heft of a Messerschmitt 109. To German pilots, accustomed to lightweight interceptors honed over years of war since 1939, these American behemoths seemed like easy prey, lumbering targets in a sky they dominated. Hermaken's confidence wasn't misplaced. The Luftwaffe had cut its teeth in Poland, France, and the Battle of Britain, facing adversaries with inferior machines or tactics. Now, circling like wolves above the 16 P-47Cs of the 4th Fighter Group, the Germans saw novices in an untested aircraft. The Americans, led by Major Donald Blakesley, a former RAF Eagle Squadron pilot, were making their combat debut over occupied Europe. They had 0 days of combat experience, while Hermaken and his comrades had been fighting for nearly 4 years. The P-47's 8 50-caliber Browning machine guns, carrying 3,400 rounds with a combined fire rate of 6,000 rounds per minute, were dismissed as outdated compared to German cannons. A Messerschmitt could be sawn in half in 2 seconds, but the Germans didn't yet know that. They saw only the P-47's sluggish climb, its wide wings laboring, and laughed at the fat targets below. Yet, beneath the mockery, a storm was brewing. The icy air at 27,000 feet carried a faint, ominous rumble, not just the drone of engines, but the pulse of American industrial might. In the French villages below, civilians glanced skyward, their scarves fluttering in the spring breeze, sensing a shift in the war's rhythm. The P-47, born from the panic of 1,940 as Hitler's armies swept France, was no ordinary fighter. Designed by Alexander Kartveli, it was a gamble on power over agility, a machine that would soon turn German laughter into dread. That April morning, as Hermaken positioned his formation for a diving attack, he couldn't imagine that these milk bottles would become the Luftwaffe's nightmare, their guns rewriting the rules of aerial warfare. Part 2. The Beast Awakens. In the summer of 1940, as German panzers rolled through France and the Luftwaffe dominated European skies, a sense of urgency gripped the United States Army Air Corps. Alexander Kartveli, Republic Aviation's Georgian-born chief designer, received a directive: build a high-altitude interceptor to match the Luftwaffe's best. Kartveli, whose childhood memories of war-torn Tbilisi fueled his drive to create machines of resilience, didn't just meet the challenge, he redefined it. The result was the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, a fighter so radical it shocked even its creators. "It will be a dinosaur," Kartveli told his team, but a dinosaur with good proportions. The XP-47B prototype, which first roared into the sky on the 6th of May 1941, weighed 9,900 pounds empty, 65% heavier than its predecessor, the P-43 Lancer. Its massive Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, an 18-cylinder radial beast delivering 2,000 horsepower, was paired with a turbo supercharger system that gave it a pregnant, almost comical appearance. Test pilots at Republic's Long Island facility approached it with skepticism, often asking, "This thing actually flies?" Fly it did, and like nothing else at altitude. The turbo supercharger, fed by exhaust gases, allowed the P-47 to maintain sea-level performance at 27,000 feet, where German fighters struggled in the thin air. Its broad wings, spanning 40 feet, carried 8 50-caliber Browning machine guns with 3,400 rounds of ammunition, a firepower unmatched in the skies. Unlike the Luftwaffe's lightweight Messerschmitt 109 seconds or Focke-Wulf 190 seconds, optimized for nimble dogfights, the P-47 was built for brute force mass, power, and durability. Kartveli's vision was shaped by the fall of France, where agile fighters had crumbled under coordinated assaults. He gambled on a machine that could absorb punishment and deliver overwhelming force, a philosophy rooted in America's growing industrial might. In smoky boardrooms, engineers pored over blueprints, their slide rules dancing to calculate stresses on wing spars capable of supporting 40,000 pounds, 3 times the aircraft's loaded weight. The P-47's complexity was staggering. Its engine alone required 2,400 precision machined components, each crafted to tolerances of thousandths of an inch. The turbo supercharger's ducting, snaking through the fuselage, was a marvel of engineering, yet it made the aircraft look ungainly on the ground. In the hangars of Farmingdale, New York, workers, many of them women new to aviation, assembled these beasts with meticulous care, their hands threading 8 miles of electrical wiring per plane. For the pilots who would fly it, the P-47 was a paradox, a lumbering giant on takeoff, but a soaring juggernaut above 20,000 feet. As the first units arrived in England in late 1942, the stage was set for a clash that would test not just the machine, but the audacity of its creator's vision. Part Trey, Trial by Fire. Major Hubert Zemke, the steely commander of the 56th Fighter Group at Bridgeport Municipal Airport in Connecticut, stared at the hulking P-47 Thunderbolts lining the tarmac in late 1942, his face a mask of frustration. Fresh from instructing Soviet pilots on P-42s and observing RAF tactics, Zemke had expected a sleek warrior, not this big disappointment that accelerated poorly and climbed anemically from low speeds. The group's transition to the P-47B and C models was a brutal ordeal, claiming 18 lives and wrecking 41 aircraft between September 1942 and January 1943. More Americans lost to training mishaps than to Luftwaffe guns in the Thunderbolt's early combat days. The inadequate runways at Bridgeport, hemmed in by Long Island Sound, exacerbated the nightmare. Pilots battled vicious torque rolls on takeoff, ground loops on landing, and the aircraft's eager dives that plunged into compressibility, shock waves freezing controls at high speeds, sending ailerons fluttering wildly, and the stick thrashing like a live wire, bruising thighs black and blue. Ground crews, often young mechanics thrust into the fray, worked feverishly under floodlights, patching fuselage cracks and recalibrating turbo superchargers amid the acrid smell of scorched rubber and oil. One crew chief recalled the psychological strain in whispered hangar talks. These boys were green, facing a beast that demanded respect, or it'd kill you outright. Lieutenant Robert Johnson, a lanky farm boy from Oklahoma, destined for 27 victories, strapped into his first P-47 and felt the raw surge. It was like hitching yourself to a locomotive. he later wrote in his memoir, Thunderbolt. The power was unbelievable. You didn't fly it, you aimed it like a cannon. Yet mastery came at a cost. The P-47's radial engine, with its exposed cylinders, shrugged off some errors, but inexperienced pilots paid dearly, their crashes echoing the group's desperate learning curve against an enemy with 4 years of bloodied expertise. By April 1943, the 56th and 4th Fighter Groups hurled their P-47 seconds into European skies, only to confirm every German prejudice. Over France, Focke-Wulf 190 seconds and Messerschmitt 109 seconds danced circles around the jugs, out-turning and out-climbing them at medium altitudes. Luftwaffe aces from JG-26, led by the brash Oberstleutnant Joseph Pips Priller, who took command in January 1943, exploited weaknesses masterfully, bouncing from below where the heavy Thunderbolts labored, forcing dogfights that favored agility over brute force. Priller radioed headquarters after one skirmish. The new American fighter is meat for the slaughter. It flies like a truck, turns like a freight train, climbs like a pregnant cow. His pilots dubbed them Indians, fat targets masquerading as warriors. In the first month of operations, American groups lost 14 P-47 seconds for just 3 confirmed kills, fueling RAF Spitfire pilots' jabs. The best evasion in a jug was to unstrap and sprint around the roomy cockpit. Whispers of resilience emerged, though. On May 4, a battle-scarred P-47 limped home with 21 cannon holes and over 100 machine gun strikes, damage that would vaporize a Bf-109 or Spitfire. The air-cooled radial engine, free of vulnerable liquid coolant, absorbed hits that felled lesser foes. When the Thunderbolt's 50 calibers converged, sustaining fire for over 30 seconds, German aircraft disintegrated in walls of lead. The Yanks' novices were learning, but the Luftwaffe's veterans laughed on, unaware that survival seeds were sown in the jug's unyielding frame. Part 4. The Turning Point. The 26th of June 1943 dawned clear over the French countryside. But for Second Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson of the 61st Fighter Squadron, it would become a day etched in fire and fury. As his formation of 48 P-47 Thunderbolts lumbered back from escorting bombers over occupied Europe, the sky erupted with danger. 16 Focke-Wulf, 190 seconds from 2 JG-26, commanded by Hauptmann Wilhelm Ferdinand Wuetz-Gallen, the younger brother of the legendary Luftwaffe General Adolf Gallen, swooped down from the sun in a textbook ambush. The Germans, leveraging their speed and position, unleashed hell on the Americans. Johnson's Thunderbolt, trailing at the rear, bore the brunt. 21 20mm cannon shells slammed into it within seconds. The canopy shattered in a hail of plexiglass. Hydraulic fluid sprayed like blood across the cockpit. The engine cowling ripped away, and flames licked behind the instrument panel. Shrapnel tore into Johnson's nose and leg, his vision blurred by oil and smoke. Desperately, he yanked the canopy release to bail out at 27,000 feet, but a shell had exploded in the track, welding it shut. Trapped in what seemed a coffin of twisted metal, Johnson wrestled the shuddering beast level and pointed its nose toward the English Channel, praying for a miracle. What followed defied every rule of aerial survival. Limping at under 170 miles per hour, the crippled P-47 caught the eye of a lone 4W-190 pilot. Historical sleuths have speculated names like Oberleutnant Otto Stamberger or Feldwebel Hans Fehrenberger from JG-26's combat logs, but his identity remains a shadow. Positioning astern, the German poured his 4 20mm cannons and 2 13mm machine guns into the Thunderbolt, exhausting his cannon ammo in a storm of explosions. Johnson huddled behind his armored seat, the aircraft bucking like a wounded bull. Repositioning, the attacker emptied his machine guns, then pulled alongside. His young, blonde face a mask of disbelief, confidence melting into confusion, then dawning horror. He fired again, draining every round, before drawing parallel once more, shaking his head in astonishment, offering a reluctant salute, and banking away, presumably barren of bullets. Miraculously, Johnson's P-47 held together, its rugged frame built with double control cables, armored deflector plates, and a radial engine that ran hot but unyielding, carrying him across the channel. Touching down at RAF Manston in Kent, the engine seized on rollout. Ground crews swarmed the wreck, their chief halting the bullet hole count at over 200. Cannon shells had detonated inches from Johnson's head and against his back armor. The engine bore direct hits, control cables frayed to threads, and 3 of 4 main longerons severed like snap bones. Yet, it had flown home, a testament to Republic's overbuilt engineering, where wing spars and mounts laughed at forces that crumpled finer machines. The tale rippled like shockwaves through the air forces. At Wright Field in Ohio, American engineers dissecting the photos and wreckage marveled, one scribbling in his notebook. "We built a tank with wings, underestimated our own monster." In Luftwaffe debriefs at Gilser-Reigen airfield, pilots from JG-26 huddled over steins, voices hushed. "Impossible," muttered Gallen's men, their reports dismissed initially by Berlin intelligence as exaggeration. But multiple witnesses confirmed the improbable AP-47 had absorbed a fighter's full arsenal and endured. This encounter shattered assumptions, proving the Thunderbolt's durability wasn't flaw but fortress. By July, pilots like Zimke preached adaptation. Use your weight, your power, your guns. The laughter was fading, the thunder was rising. Part 5. Boom and Zoom. By mid-1943, the P-47 Thunderbolt's baptism of fire had exposed its flaws, but American pilots, bloodied yet unbowed, began to unlock its true potential. Major Hubert Zimke, commanding the 56th Fighter Group, had endured the early losses and German taunts, but through brutal trial and error, he uncovered a truth. The P-47 wasn't built for dogfights, it was a predator of altitude and speed. Captain Walker Bud Mahurin, a rising star in the 56th, refined this into the boom and zoom tactic, a strategy that turned the Thunderbolt's weight into a weapon. From 30,000 feet, P-47 seconds could roll inverted and dive at speeds topping 550 miles per hour, faster than any German fighter, even in a vertical plunge. At the dive's bottom, their 50 caliber Browning machine guns unleashed a storm of 6,000 rounds per minute, creating a wall of lead that German pilots described as apocalyptic. Mahurin's men dubbed it the Thunderbolt Turkey Shoot, a grim jest born in the skies over France. The tactic's devastating proof came on the 17th of August 1943, during the ambitious Schweinfurt-Regensburg raid, the deepest Allied bomber penetration into Germany yet. Major David Schilling, leading the 62nd Fighter Squadron, spotted a formation of Messerschmitt 110 destroyers, twin-engine bomber killers armed with heavy cannon and rockets positioning to shred B-17 flying fortresses. From 28,000 feet, Schilling's flight of 4 P-47 seconds plummeted like meteors, their engines roaring through the thin air. Unteroffizier Heinrich Roth, a surviving Me-110 gunner, later recounted the horror in a POW interrogation. "They came down like hammers from heaven. I fired at 800 meters, saw hits spark on their wings, but the P-47 didn't wobble. Then it fired our lead aircraft disintegrated. Wings tore off, the tail severed, the crew compartment shredded into confetti. In 2 seconds, it was gone. 8 Me-110 seconds vanished in under a minute, torn apart by the Thunderbolt's 3,400 rounds per aircraft, each gun's 425-round belt delivering a convergence zone at 300 yards, a 6-foot circle of 100 projectiles per second, traveling at 2,900 feet per second. The raid exposed the P-47's range limitations, even with drop tanks, but its firepower rewrote the engagement. In the mess halls of East Anglia, pilots swapped tales of the day's chaos, their camaraderie forged in the crucible of survival. "We didn't outturn them," Mahurin told his squadron, a grin breaking through his fatigue. "We outran them, outgunned them." German after-action reports from Luftwaffe headquarters in Berlin noted the Me-110 losses with alarm. One officer scribbling, "The American guns fire not in bursts, but in rivers." The P-47's ammunition, a mix of armor-piercing incendiary and tracer rounds, burned at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, igniting aluminum airframes where German cannon often left superficial scars. As summer waned, the Luftwaffe's confidence cracked. The Thunderbolt's dives were no longer a punchline, but a prelude to destruction. A lesson hammered home in the screams of falling metal and the silence of lost comrades. Part 6. The Thunderclap. By early 1944, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt was shedding its reputation as a lumbering joke, its roar becoming a harbinger of doom. The arrival of the P-47 D-22 variant in January 1944, equipped with a massive Hamilton Standard hydromatic propeller featuring 13-foot paddle blades, transformed the aircraft's performance. These broad-chord blades bit into the air, boosting the climb rate from a sluggish 2,200 feet per minute to a formidable 3,000 feet per minute, rivaling or surpassing German fighters at most altitudes. Acceleration improved too, allowing P-47 seconds to build energy swiftly in level flight. But it was the sound that struck terror. The propeller tips, nearing supersonic speeds, produced a deep, resonant rumble audible for miles, a thunderclap that German troops and pilots alike learned to dread. Hauptmann Heinz Nock of JG-11, a veteran with over 200 missions, scribbled in his diary after a February 1944 encounter near Hanover, "The fat Americans have learned to climb. They matched us, followed us to 30,000 feet. Schmidt's foe, 190, was blown apart in nothing but smoke and fragments. These are not the same machines we mocked." The thunderclap wasn't just mechanical, it was psychological warfare. In occupied France, villagers like Marie Dubois, a schoolteacher in Normandy, recalled the sound shaking their windows. It was like the sky itself growled. "We knew the Americans were coming, and the Germans scattered like roaches." Luftwaffe reports from early 1944, captured in Allied intelligence sweeps, noted the P-47's evolving threat. A JG-2 officer wrote, "The new propellers change everything. Their climb and speed nullify our advantages above 20,000 feet. The P-47's turbo-supercharged Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine maintained its 2,000 horsepower up to 30,000 feet, where German BMW 801 and Daimler-Benz DB 605 engines gasped in the thin air. This high-altitude dominance, coupled with 3,400 rounds of 50 caliber ammunition, made the Thunderbolt a relentless hunter. German ground troops, huddled in bunkers or racing to cover, coined the term Donnerschlag for the P-47's roar, a sound that signaled imminent destruction. In a March 1944 intercept mission, Nock's squadron bounced a P-47 formation, expecting an easy kill. Instead, the Americans turned into the attack, climbing aggressively. Nock's wingman was caught in the convergence of 8 Brownings, his aircraft disintegrating in a fireball. "It's not just a fighter," Nock later told his ground crew, voice low. "It's a machine that refuses to die." The P-47's rugged construction, 3 divided by 8-inch steel armor behind the pilot, 1 divided by 2-inch bulletproof windscreen, and redundant control systems allowed it to absorb punishment that would shred a Messerschmitt or Focke-Wulf. By spring, Luftwaffe pilots avoided head-on engagements, their briefings now warning of the Thunderbolt's unmatched firepower and resilience. The laughter of 1943 was gone, replaced by a grim respect as the P-47's thunderclap echoed across Europe, a prelude to the Allied storm gathering on the horizon. Part Set, Jabu Terror. As the Allies prepared for the invasion of Normandy in June 1944, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt transitioned from high-altitude predator to a devastating fighter-bomber, earning the German nickname Jabo for its ground attack prowess. With D-Day looming, P-47 seconds of the 9th Air Force became the spearhead of Operation Overlord's air campaign. Their 8 50 caliber Browning machine guns, 3,400 rounds of armor-piercing incendiary ammunition, and newly added bomb racks, transforming them into flying artillery. The D-25 variant could carry 2 1,000-pound bombs under the wings and a 500-pound bomb under the fuselage, a payload rivaling early war medium bombers. Later models mounted 10 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets, each VARs, each equivalent to a 105mm artillery shell. Oberst Hans von Luck, commanding the 125th Panzergrenadier Regiment in Normandy, witnessed their fury firsthand. They came in low, so low you saw the pilot's goggles. the roar of engines, the scream of rockets, then the hammer of those guns. A column of 20 trucks vanished in one pass, reduced to burning wreckage. The men froze, calling it Jabo fever. These weren't fighters, they were snipers with wings. As the Allies prepared for the invasion of Normandy in June 1944, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt transitioned from high-altitude Predator to a devastating fighter-bomber, earning the German nickname Jabo for its ground attack prowess. With D-Day looming, P-47 seconds of the 9th Air Force became the spearhead of Operation Overlord's air campaign. Their 8 50-caliber Browning machine guns, 3,400 rounds of armor-piercing incendiary ammunition, and newly added bomb racks, transforming them into flying artillery. The D-25 variant could carry 2 1,000-pound bombs under the wings and a 500-pound bomb under the fuselage, a payload rivaling early war medium bombers. Later models mounted 10 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets, each VARs, each equivalent to a 105mm artillery shell. Oberst Hans von Luck, commanding the 125th Panzergrenadier Regiment in Normandy, witnessed their fury firsthand. They came in low, so low you saw the pilot's goggles. The roar of engines, the scream of rockets, then the hammer of those guns. A column of 20 trucks vanished in one pass, reduced to burning wreckage. The men froze, calling it Jabo fever. These weren't fighters, they were snipers with wings. The psychological toll was immense. German troops developed physical symptoms, tremors, nausea, at the mere sound of the Thunderbolt's thunderclap roar. Luftwaffe efforts to counter with reinforced vehicle armor or more flak guns failed. The P-47's speed and armor made it nearly untouchable at low altitude. In June alone, 9th Air Force P-47 seconds destroyed 651 locomotives, 3,847 trucks, 512 tanks, and 4,553 horse-drawn vehicles, crippling Wehrmacht mobility. A captured German officer in Normandy lamented, "Daylight movement is suicide." The Jabo owns the roads. The Thunderbolt's versatility, bombs for bunkers, rockets for tanks, guns for troops, made it a relentless force. By forcing German forces to move only under cover of darkness, P-47 seconds strangled their logistics, paving the way for Allied ground advances. The sky over Normandy wasn't just contested, it was claimed by the thunder of American steel. Part Oct Pacific Thunder. While the P-47 Thunderbolt carved a legend in European skies, its raw power found a perfect proving ground in the vast Pacific theater. The 348th Fighter Group, operating from rugged airstrips in New Guinea, discovered the Thunderbolt's durability and firepower were tailor-made for the Pacific's sprawling distances and brutal conditions. Colonel Neil Kirby, the group's commander, honed tactics that leveraged the P-47's strengths against Japanese aircraft, which were often nimble but fragile. On the 11th of October 1943, Kirby led 4 P-47 seconds against a swarm of 40 Japanese planes over Wewak, personally downing 6 in a single mission, a feat that earned him the Medal of Honor. Japanese ace Saburo Sakai, who tangled with P-47 seconds in his Zero, later wrote in his memoir, Samurai, "We called them monsters. Our 20mm cannons, deadly against P-40 seconds, barely scratched them. I pumped dozens of rounds into one Thunderbolt, and it flew on. Their return fire was a nightmare. Streams of heavy bullets tore our planes to shreds. The P-47's 8 50-caliber Brownings, firing 3,400 rounds at 6,000 rounds per minute, turned engagements into massacres. The Pacific demanded range and resilience, and the P-47 delivered. Its air-cooled Pratt & Whitney R-2800 engine thrived in the humid, dusty conditions that choke liquid-cooled fighters, while its armored cockpit and redundant systems shrugged off ground fire. On New Guinea's muddy strips, native tribesmen watched in awe as P-47 seconds roared overhead, their thunderclap propellers shaking palm trees. One elder, interviewed post-war, recalled, "The big planes brought fire from the sky. Japanese guns fell silent when they came. Kirby's tactics emphasized high-altitude dives, using the P-47's 550 miles per hour dive speed to overwhelm Zeros and Oscars, which disintegrated under the Browning's convergence zone, a 6-foot death trap at 300 yards. The 348's kill ratio soared, with pilots like Major Richard Bong, America's top ace, crediting the P-47's firepower for early victories before transitioning to P-38 seconds. The Pacific demanded range and resilience, and the P-47 delivered. Its air-cooled Pratt & Whitney R-2800 engine thrived in the humid, dusty conditions that choke liquid-cooled fighters, while its armored cockpit and redundant systems shrugged off ground fire. On New Guinea's muddy strips, native tribesmen watched in awe as P-47 seconds roared overhead, their thunderclap propellers shaking palm trees. One elder interviewed post-war recalled, "The big planes brought fire from the sky. Japanese guns fell silent when they came. Kirby's tactics emphasized high-altitude dives, using the P-47's 550 miles per hour dive speed to overwhelm Zeros and Oscars, which disintegrated under the Browning's convergence zone, a 6-foot death trap at 300 yards. The 348's kill ratio soared, with pilots like Major Richard Bong, America's top ace, crediting the P-47's firepower for early victories before transitioning to P-38 seconds. Part 9. Facing the Jets. By late 1944, the Luftwaffe unleashed its technological trump card, the Messerschmitt Me-262 jet, a sleek predator with a blistering 540 miles per hour's top speed that should have outclassed any propeller-driven fighter. Yet, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, once mocked as a lumbering giant, found ways to challenge even this futuristic threat. Pilots like Lieutenant Colonel John C. Meyer of the 352nd Fighter Group discovered two critical vulnerabilities in the Me-262: its sluggish acceleration during takeoff and landing, and its inability to maneuver tightly at high speeds. On the 27th of November 1944, Meyer, patrolling at 28,000 feet, spotted a Me-262 inches level flight near Osnabrück. Diving his P-47 at nearly 500 miles per hour, he closed the gap before the jet could react. His combat report was stark: opened fire at 400 yards. The enemy aircraft disintegrated engines, tore free, fuselage shattered. No pilot escape. The P-47's 8 50 caliber Brownings, delivering a 6-foot convergence zone of 100 projectiles per second, proved lethal even against jets. The P-47M variant, introduced in early 1945, was tailored for this new fight. With water methanol injection boosting the Pratt & Whitney R-2800 to 2,800 horsepower, it reached 470 miles per hour at 30,000 feet, fast enough to intercept Me-262 seconds in specific scenarios. Major George Bostwick, commanding the 63rd Fighter Squadron, downed two Me-262 seconds in March 1945, exploiting their need to slow for bomber attacks. "Jets are fast but brittle," Bostwick noted. "One good burst, and they're paper." Luftwaffe jet pilots, like Lieutenant Fritz Müller of JG-7, expressed frustration and captured logs. "The Thunderbolts wait above. We climb slowly after takeoff. They dive like hawks. Their guns shred us before we reach speed." The P-47 also hunted V-1 flying bombs, its dive speed and firepower ideal for intercepting the pulse jet missiles. Pilots like Captain Raymond Wetmore became adept at chasing Von Second, their 50 caliber rounds igniting the bomb's fuel in spectacular mid-air explosions. Allied intelligence reports from 1,945 declassified post-war revealed the Me-262's limitations. Limited fuel, forced short missions, and engine unreliability grounded many jets. P-47 seconds capitalized on these, patrolling airfields to catch jets at their most vulnerable. A British liaison officer at a 9th Air Force base marveled, "The Yanks jugs don't chase jets, they ambush them." The P-47's rugged construction, 3 divided by 8-inch steel armor, bulletproof windscreen, and redundant systems allowed pilots to press attacks through flak and defensive fire that deterred lighter fighters. By spring 1945, the Thunderbolt's adaptability had turned a science fiction threat into a manageable foe. Its pilots weaving through tracer-filled skies with a confidence born of experience and overwhelming firepower. The Me-262 was a glimpse of the future, but the P-47's present was an unrelenting storm of lead that even jets couldn't escape. Part DS, Industrial Triumph. By January 1945, the Luftwaffe's desperation peaked with Operation Bodenplatte, a last-ditch assault to cripple Allied airfields. On January 1, nearly 900 German fighters, including their finest remaining pilots, struck bases across Belgium and the Netherlands. At Y-34 Airfield near Metz, home to the 365th Fighter Group's P-47 Thunderbolts, German aircraft destroyed 22 Thunderbolts on the ground. A captured German pilot, taunting his captors amid the burning wreckage, sneered, "What do you think of that?" Major George Brooking, the group's commander, pointed to the flight line where ground crews were already clearing debris and preparing for replacements. "By tomorrow, we'll have 40 new ones," he said coolly. "How long to replace your pilots?" The German's smirk vanished. Within 48 hours, factory-fresh P-47D 42nds, flown from English depots, filled the tarmac. The Luftwaffe lost 271 aircraft and 213 pilots in Bodenplatte, irreplaceable losses, while the Allies replaced 134 destroyed planes within a week. This was the P-47's ultimate triumph, American industrial might. Republic Aviation produced 15,683 Thunderbolts, more than any other U.S. fighter, with Farmingdale's Long Island plant churning out one every hour and the Evansville, Indiana facility hitting 500 per month by 1944. Each P-47 required 65,000 parts, 8 miles of wiring, and a 2,400-component Pratt & Whitney R-2800 engine machined to thousandths of an inch. Women like Rosie O'Connell, a riveter at Farmingdale, worked 12-hour shifts, their hands blistered but steady, ensuring quality that surpassed peacetime standards. Ammunition production was equally staggering, 10 million. 50 caliber rounds monthly by mid-1944, each cartridge from plants like Lake City, Missouri, crafted to feed flawlessly through synchronized Brownings. Fuel demands 100 gallons per hour in cruise, 300 inches combat saw the 9th Air Force consume 25 million gallons monthly, shipped across U-boat-infested waters. Pilot training sealed the advantage. By 1944, the U.S. graduated 30,000 pilots annually, each with 400 hours, including 100 inches advanced fighters like the P-47. They studied captured German planes, mastering enemy tactics. Lieutenant Eugene Roberts, arriving in September 1944, recalled, "I had 75 hours in the jug, practiced deflection shooting, studied gun camera film. My first mission felt unfair. The German I faced had half my training." In contrast, German pilots by 1945 entered combat with under 100 hours, many with less than 30. Oberstleutnant Joseph Priller, who mocked the P-47 inches 1,943, admitted in a suppressed 1945 interview, "They buried us in steel and lead." Their pilots arrived better trained than our instructors, with endless fuel, parts, and bullets. Courage alone can't win. At a 1985 reunion, General Adolph Galland reflected, "We laughed at the P-47's size, but they built 15,000 while we struggled for 1,000. Those guns, Roosevelt's piano, played our requiem. The Thunderbolts, 6-to-1 kill ratio, 213,873 sorties, and 135 million rounds fired didn't just defeat the Luftwaffe, it annihilated it. A testament to an avalanche of American industry and resolve." Please press like and subscribe to the channel, or wait for my latest video.